Blake Corum getting a chance to lead the Wolverines out, you don't think he wouldn't have run for 250 yards that day where they were playing? Oh, yes. If he had the opportunity to go out and play on that stage, watched by almost 20 million people, you should look that up. It was the highest rated college football game in the last couple years, outrated NBA Finals and World Series games. We're all there to see you. So he had a great momentum and great narrative rolling in, and you do it in Columbus, he would have put up 4 touchdowns and probably 200 plus yards. Yes, that would have been enough for him to seal it as much, even with what Caleb is doing out west, even with what Duggan's doing in these shootouts down here in the Big 12. Yes, Blake Corum, in my humble quarterback world opinion, rocks and shakes all that stuff. But we've seen it. Derrick Henry won it. Mark Ingram won it. But they won it either in SEC championship game performances, Auburn, like their big stages. They took off. They just blew through there. And Corum had it set. You have a really good quarterback. He's not a rock star because that otherwise you tend to share votes. You got a great defense that's going to help you get the ball back an awful lot, and you're on a big stage and you're on a winning team. You don't often see quarterbacks that kind of overcome 3-4 losses because of the numbers you can accumulate and rack up. Running backs, if you're the tip of the spear, as Trevor, as you know, you're the tip of the spear on a top 2, top 3 team. Yes. And then you go out and do it against your blood rival. Yeah. In my opinion, Blake Corum rocks and rolls against Ohio State. He's in there, probably a narrow edge over the superhero in LA.
And I'm not saying that necessarily he deserves it this year, but a guy that we haven't talked about in this long list. How many names have we talked about? Almost 10.
Yeah.
A guy that is not on a winning football team and is not the quarterback, but Bijan Robinson is one of the best football players in this country. And the numbers.
Go ahead.
Just analyze that one real quick. What could Bijan Robinson do in his power really be in the thick of this conversation? Or does it really have to be perfect storm? Texas has got to be winning football games. It doesn't really matter about his talent and his individual performance.
So, again, another dependent position, just like quarterback. His coaching staff doesn't give him enough touches. There are games when you watch Texas lose, I think their last loss, he got 12 touches. Now, the game will dictate some of that because, hey, if we fall down by a bunch, then whatever. But still, then get him involved in the pass game. Then he should be in with draws and screens. Like, he's our best player. Why can't we get him the ball? 12 touches.
Yeah.
And so, yes, Corum and Hack's guy up in Syracuse, the Illinois running back, there are some rock star running backs out there, but he is easily the most highly touted. Bijan Robinson. Had a chance to work with him, and he's like a sophomore high schooler. He came to our football camp here in San Diego just because he was buddies with a quarterback, making one-hand grabs. And I ran and asked his granddad, is he a receiver or running back? Like, what does he play? And I was like, man, I'm going to call a couple coaches. He's like, well, he's already got like 30 offers. I'm like, of course he does. Never mind. Like, you know what I mean? And he was making like these one-hand grabs. But he's hurt, I think, in some ways by his own staff. Blake Corum is going to see 20, 25, 28 touches. And so from the outside world, we look through Michigan staff and we think they not only believe in you, they rely on you. Texas, we get that. But where's the reliance? It almost was like remember when, and you're probably too young, when USC was in fourth quarters and red zone deals, Reggie Bush is on the sideline. You're like, what is Reggie Bush doing on the sideline? But they had Lindale White. So you're not irreplaceable, and you're not like, it's not like without you, we don't get this done. No, we'll get it done. We'll just get you in a second. You're like, well, damn. But luckily, Reggie White won his Heisman, and you should get his Heisman back to him. But anyway, I'm with you on Bijan Robinson, but Texas would have had to have been a winner. Beating Alabama would have kickstarted him. And some of those other losses, they just look real lethargic. Now, if Texas is in the top 4, then obviously he goes. It's hard for a running back. His team is going to pull him back, so to speak.
So let me ask you this, based kind of back to our original conversation about Heisman related to the Maxwell and the Davey O'Brien that gets split, right?
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams and Max Duggan. Are those the clear-cut number 1 and number 2 in New York City here in a couple of days?
I think so.
And I'm curious, is it even up for grabs, or do you have one that's a no-brainer?
So I was told by our game day staff, because I always ask that question, how come some years it's 3 guys and 4 guys, and one year it's 5 guys? Like, what are we doing? Like, why do the seats change? And I was told they invite up to the point they think that the drop off in voting will go. So if the drop this year apparently is between the 4th guy in this group and whoever number 5 is, the drop is so severe, there's no need to bring 5 in. Years you see 5 guys, they're all pretty much along the same range of votes. It's the horse race would be fairly close. Years that it's 3, that means the 4th horse was too far back. He can't catch up. Why bring him to New York without that? Because when they unveil the votes, it'll almost be, really disheartening to see that you weren't even close to begin with. So they don't even bother bringing you in. This crew here, I really do think your 2 lead horses, again, it's a November award. And I'm talking about November stages and big wins, and both these guys had them. I think Caleb wins this thing. I think Duggan is fairly behind him. I don't honestly think it's going to be close, because Caleb had so many highlight moments, and I don't think too many people outside of his receiver can name another Trojan. That's also can be said for Duggan. And then Duggan's got a killer story because he was the backup to start the season.
Yep.
He got called into duty. And
so
go ahead.
Here, I was just thinking about this, and I know we could take this a million different ways, a million different scenarios, but I'm sitting here going, if Max Duggan finds a way to get the ball in the end zone when they were stopped on the goal line stand and TCU wins the football game,
yes,
he plays the exact same.
Yes.
Let's say Kindred gets in the end zone and TCU wins the football game. I think there's a serious argument that Max Duggan wins the Heisman because he won the football game over Caleb Williams, who loses it. And he did the exact same thing. That's where it gets like, all right, what is the rubric, right?
I still don't think I kind of think this was Caleb's 2/3 down the stretch. It was like, boy, he doesn't have any big elephants to slay like Hooker. Taking out Alabama and then Hooker going to LSU and winning down there, like, you ain't gonna. He's got elephants on his path. You don't have any elephants.